Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Chris Bruton, and welcome back. So today, I'm wanting to talk to just about everyone. That's athletes, anybody who's in a relationship, anybody who has any sort of goal, because, yeah, if you're a human at all, this can apply to you and help you. And the topic of today is really just personal responsibility. Now, I'm going to attack this mostly from like a relationship standpoint, but obviously we'll be able to discuss it in terms of performance, in terms of career, in terms of goal setting, or really anything else that you would be interested in learning about or trying to do any self-improvement on. And so to start this out, like what I really would need to do is I would need to show you the ERIC. This is the emotional relational intelligence quotient. What you'll notice is there's 4 quadrants, and because ERIC does things a little bit differently than other people, where I would actually want to point you to is the lower right quadrant. This idea of relational management, okay? Anything that you hope for, if we're talking about relationships, like what do we want in relationships? We want connection, we want intimacy. Dang it, we'd like to have fun with the people that we're in relationship with. Any two people who have their own brain and their own ideas are going to come together, and that's going to create difference of opinions or conflict. And conflict isn't something that has to be scary. Actually, conflict can be healthy if we handle it in a healthy way. I can tell you that with my wife just this morning. She has an idea, I have an idea. We come together with that, we disagree. Certainly there's the opportunity for emotions and things to get involved with that. But thank goodness she thinks different than me, because I can be an idiot half the time. And when I'm an idiot, I'm not thinking straight, I'm gonna walk off a cliff and not even see it. She's there to say, hey, here's an idea. How about we not walk off that cliff? How about we do this instead? And thank God for her. And I feel like that's the reason we have relationships in general. It's a checks and balances of our own stupidity or, error in thinking or whatever you want to call it. But certainly when I'm passionate about something or when there's something that's important to me and somebody has a difference of opinion, well, that can affect me. And when it affects me, it jacks me up and I can get angry, and I can then do all the dumb things that we do when we're in conflict, and all the unhealthy things that we can do when we are in bad relationships. And so for that reason, if I can control those reactions and the person I'm in a relationship can control those reactions, conflict can actually be super helpful and healthy, and honestly just a path to actually lead to more connection and more intimacy. But when it comes to something that's not necessarily relational management, but more of just like goal setting management or performance management, there's still this idea of like, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to experience. These are the things that I'm striving for, that I want to accomplish. So be it relational or be it performance or be it anything else where it's like, this is where I'm going. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to experience this. It's all in that lower right quadrant. When it comes to this relational awareness, or just really this awareness of who I am and how I'm showing up for this thing, this goal, this performance, that all comes down to basically how my prefrontal cortex is established and functioning or not functioning. And it's how I'm either setting myself up best for to have the best possible relationship and connection that I want, experience the relational things that I want, experience the performance goals that I want to experience. But it's all in terms of how I show up and how I'm aware of this relational element to the other person or to the things that I'm wanting to accomplish. If you go to the top right quadrant, this is the idea of personal management. And the personal management basically comes down to, am I going to respond to whatever's going on inside of me or going on around me, or am I going to react to it? Response is typically intentional. Response is typically patient and calmer and more in control. Reactions are fight or flight, and all the silly things that I do when my prefrontal cortex goes elsewhere and my amygdala takes over my nervous system, and I go into straight up fight or flight mode. And we'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. The top left quadrant of the ERIC is really where all this starts, and it's that personal awareness. I can't respond or react if I am activated and I have no idea what's going on inside of me on a biological level, on an emotional level, or on a mental level. If I'm paying no attention and those things are just kind of coming and going, unfiltered, unprocessed, well then, yeah, there's a really good chance that I'm not going to have any control over what happens after that. But if you're looking at this if you're looking at this image, you're noticing that there's this sequence of cause and effect. If I want to get to the best possible relationship that I want, or if I want to get to the best possible performance that I want, it's all going to cycle back through to, first of all, how am I aware of what's going on with me? And if I am aware, how intentional I'm going to respond to that. And if I respond intentionally and I show up with the characteristics that I want to, then it's my best shot at going for that. 3 of these 4 quadrants are actually things that I do by myself with nobody else watching, with nobody else involved in that process. It's all about what am I doing with me, inside of me, to show up with the best possible chance to experience what I want in this. And so as I explain a little bit more about all this today, it really comes down to the personal responsibility of what am I going to do with the things that happen to me so that I can have the best possible chance of experiencing what I want to experience. And so with that being said, I was reflecting the other day and really thinking about what it was that was causing that decisiveness in me. And as I've worked for over a decade with clients, it really comes down to one basic thing. What is the enemy of of our goals, of our relationships, of all the things that we're actually wanting to experience? And I think mostly it can be drilled down to our fears. Now, other therapists may say, well, it's your cognitions. Other therapists may say, well, it's your emotions or your feelings. And I would say that your cognitions and your feelings are all informed by whatever that fear may be. So, for example, I think the biggest battle of my own life is this constant fear that I'm not going to measure up, that I'm not going to be good enough. No matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, it's going to fall short. And I talk to my therapist often about that, and I've processed that for longer than I would care to admit to you today. But that fear of not being enough is pretty much the constant play that comes up with me and gets in the way of whatever is going on in my relationships or in whatever I'm trying to pull off in career or performance. So as I was thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, but there's some times where it's actually true. I'm not good enough. So you can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I am 5 foot 8 inches tall. And for that reason, the biological lottery, the genetic lottery, pretty much guaranteed that I was not going to be an NBA basketball player. And so it is very easy for me to sit here now and tell you that I am not good enough to play in the NBA. The problem with that is like that is a fact, and that's pretty obvious if you've ever seen me shoot a basketball. But it doesn't connect with me on an emotional level. Like trying to be in the NBA is not what I want. It's not what's important to me. It's not my end game. And so for that reason, to acknowledge that I'm not good enough in the NBA doesn't have those cognitions, doesn't have those feelings involved that activate me, that get me into that fight or flight mode, that sends me off to do all the dumb things that can sabotage peace in my relationship, connects my relationship, or sabotage whatever performance I'm trying to pull off. But then sometimes the not good enough is true, and it does activate the feeling. My middle son is a pretty good soccer player. I love watching him play soccer. He loves soccer. He lives for soccer. I grew up playing baseball and football, and I wrestled. And I didn't even really start watching soccer until I was in my early 30s. And I love the sport now, and my love for the sport now is a lot of the reason why he is into soccer. But I cannot coach that kid one thing when it comes to a soccer ball. And if I even try to mimic whatever it is that I would want him to know, it's sloppy, it looks dumb, and any other parent like watching from across the field would be like, that guy is an idiot. He has no idea what he's doing. And they'd be right, because the truth of the matter is that I am not good enough at soccer to be able to actively or supposedly teach my son soccer. And that actually does activate some fears because my son loves soccer. He wants to be really good at soccer. He tells me that he wants to play in a World Cup and he wants to get a college scholarship. And he's 8, and, I'm not going to shoot down those dreams, and I'm not going to tell him that those dreams aren't attainable because I don't know what his love for soccer and what his future holds. But, at the end of the day, if it's up to me to get him to whatever his goals are, I'm not good enough. And that actually brings up some fear in me because my not being good enough could actually cost him in some way of being able to maximize what his talents and being able to go to the highest level of whatever that means for him. If that's just being really good at academy soccer, if that's making an ENCL team, if that's whatever that may be, I don't know what I don't know. I never played soccer, and I'm not good enough to coach him and develop him as a soccer player to be there. And the fact that that could cost him in some way, that not good enough really does affect me. And so when I'm watching him play soccer and I'm seeing him make mistakes and I'm seeing him do those things, there's this turmoil that comes up inside of me, and a doubt, a fear that really can get in the way of my enjoyment of just being able to watch my son play soccer. But then sometimes that fear isn't true, right? So yeah, like at the end of the day, there's some times that I feel like I'm not good enough in my marriage. I'm not a good enough husband. I'm not a good enough whatever. And the fact of the matter is that like if you really look at the broad picture and I apply logic to that situation, I am good enough. I'm a good husband. I show up well for my wife as much as I can, and I'm not perfect and I have my moments, but I am good enough. But all it takes is something as silly as my wife rearranging the dishwasher after I loaded it and started it. That can activate something inside of me that creates an anger inside of me because the fear is like, she thinks you're not good enough to do that. Like she thinks you're not good enough to perform this simple task. And what does that say to you? And it's offensive, and that fear then comes up inside of me and it can create conflict. And I'm sitting here not proud to say that my wife and I have fought about the dishwasher more than once. And we'll probably fight about it again. And is that healthy conflict? Probably not. But it's conflict, and hopefully we can find a way to understand each other. But at the end of the day, I'm good enough, but yet that fear that I'm not good enough really messes with me. And so the basis of all of this that I'm saying is that it's whatever feelings, whatever emotions, whatever cognitions come at you in the aftermath of a event that creates conflict in your relationship or an experience that creates a interruption in your performance or your goals, well, that is based off of a fear. And you being able to identify and know what to do with that fear is basically step one of doing anything productive in the aftermath and pursuing that goal in an intentional way with your best shot of experience in that goal. And so if you've ever heard me speak before, if you're one of my clients, you know the metaphor of the bear. And so you can go to other videos and get a little bit deeper synopsis of this if you want to. But the bear is just a way for me to explain the biological thing that happens in your body whenever there is a fear or a threat. And so if we look at our brain as, this, and right now, if you're listening to this, my hope is that your prefrontal cortex is online and you're in your parasympathetic nervous system. And so your parasympathetic nervous system means that you're calm. It means that you can hear my voice and process what I'm saying clearly, that logical thought is, fully engaged, and you can process what I'm saying logically and make your own connections, that you have empathy, right? If I'm screwing up, stumbling over my words, maybe you have some empathy for me in that, but that there's empathy and you're capable of feeling something for another person and having that empathy. But as soon as there's a threat, like the bear in the woods, right? I'm walking through the woods and then now there's a bear charging at me. This prefrontal cortex in a nanosecond goes offline before I can even say bear. And my amygdala takes over, and my amygdala engages my sympathetic nervous system, and all of a sudden, it is fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn. But for the sake of today, we're going to focus on fight or flight. And I'm either going to run from that bear, or I'm going to fight that bear. And that's all that my body cares about. My prefrontal cortex is no longer online because logical thought right now gets me killed. Is that bear running at me? Maybe its cub is around here somewhere. Maybe it's saw something over there. Maybe it doesn't see me at all. Logic just got me mauled by a bear because I did not fight it or run from it quick enough. Or, hey, like if I'm with another person and that empathy, hey, I really care about you. How can I help you? Can I grab weight off of, no, like that empathy has already pretty much got me mauled by a bear, right? All those things that are great for relationships, that are great for performance, are not online, at least not online to the full capacity that they could be. And if I really am being chased by a bear in the woods, thank God, because I don't want these things getting in the way. I want to survive. But the problem is that our nervous system, our brain, it doesn't process only physical threat, only life and death safety in fight or flight. It can be my wife rearranged the dishes in the dishwasher. My sympathy, that's a threat to my well-being. That's a threat to me feeling like I'm good enough or like I'm successful or I'm not a failure, or it's a threat to my connection with my wife. And so logical thought gone, empathy, how my wife feels about it, don't really care. And I am often running, defending myself and arguing. What's another word that we call arguments in relationships? Fights. And so here I go, right? Or maybe she's upset at me about that, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to have this conversation. I'm going to emotionally shut down, and I'm going to go into another room or down to my workshop or wherever it may be, and I'm going to run away from you or flight. And that's what we do. If it's in performance, I'm either going to push forward, I'm going to fight with my parasympathetic nervous system engaged, which isn't going to lead to great performance, or I'm going to run from this. I'm going to shy away from this. And again, it's not going to be good for my performance. And so the enemy of my, whatever it is that was in that fourth quadrant, the things that I want in life, is when there's a threat to me achieving those things, and I go into that fight or flight mode. And so I'm saying all this, and I'm bringing it back to personal responsibility because from a relational standpoint, I can really speak about my marriage in basically two parts. There's the first part of my marriage where it was very much my focus was on how do I get my wife to stop doing the things that I don't like, and how do I get her to start doing the things that I do like. And it just so happened that her methods were pretty much how do I get him to stop doing the things that I don't like and to start doing the things that I do like. And so all of our focus was just kind of like, okay, like, hey, if you could just do blank, that would really help me out. Or if you could just stop doing that, then I feel like you and I, we would have a better relationship right now. And I can remember a story, and I can't remember what it was, but my wife was like, hey, if you could just stop jumping to conclusions right now, if you could just ask some questions, then asking questions would let you know, would give me the opportunity to tell you what's going on, and then you would hear from me what's going on, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it, and we wouldn't have this fight. And I'm like, okay, so don't jump to conclusions. Let's ask questions. And it might have been the next day, it may have been a day after that, but I'm a learner. And so, okay, yep, don't jump to conclusions. And so we were talking about something, and I'm like, well, don't jump to conclusions, ask questions. So I asked her a question. She goes, you don't already know that? And I'm like, but you said don't jump to conclusions. And she says, well, don't you can jump to conclusions with that, just don't jump to conclusions with this. And then it's like, well, then like so what are the scenarios where I jump to, and where do I ask questions, and how do I stop doing the thing, and how do I stop offending you, and how do we stop having these things? Because all of my focus was, and all of her focus was, how do I get you to do the thing that I want you to do, and stop doing the thing that I don't want you to do? And I'm going to be honest, I pretty much felt like a failure all the time, because no matter how hard I tried, if there was 100 rules to follow, I'd never go the day and get them all right. Or if I did get 100 rules right, all of a sudden I discovered that there was a 101st rule that I didn't know about that I got wrong. And it didn't set us up for success, and it didn't make us feel like we were good spouses. And yeah, even early on in marriage, there were times where I'm like, man, like, am I cut out for this? Can I even be a good husband? But then as I learned some things as a therapist and started applying some new logic and really started owning this idea of personal responsibility, well, that actually changed everything. And I would say that certainly launched what I consider kind of the second part of my relationship with my wife, which is one that feels much better and I feel like has experienced a lot more actual connection. And so that is really that, hey, what I want in my relationship is connection with my wife. It's intimacy with her. I want to have fun with her. I want to be able to solve problems well. I want to have good conflict management. I want to, be able to raise our boys together in unity, like with at least being able to do that on a unified front. All those are really important to me, and all those things are really, really what I want. But I can't make my wife do those things my way, and honestly, she shouldn't, because I'm sure there's some of those ways where I have blind spots and I wouldn't do them well. But instead of having my way and changing her and what she's doing or not doing as my goal, as my solution, I said, you know what? I'm going to look inward, and I'm going to take the personal responsibility in myself to show up as the version of me that I want to be as much as I possibly can for her, regardless of what she's doing, regardless of how she's showing up. And my wife shows up well most of the time. I have an amazing wife. I hit the lottery with her. But yeah, there's days that she has bad days. There's days where whatever is in conflict has a significant fear or threat in her heart, and she's in fight or flight reacting to that. And I can meet her there. Sometimes I do. Or I can do the work that I need to do to be able to show up as the version of me that I want to be. Because if she's in that mode, then there's a really good chance that I can help in this situation navigate it well. It's less about me figuring out how to get her to show up well and me putting all the emphasis on my responsibility to show up well. So if you go to the second image that I would have for you, that Eric, when you look at this, what I want with my wife is that that relational management. And what that looks like is that connection, that intimacy, that good communication. That's what I want. But the only way that I'm going to get there with her is if I'm doing what's in that third quadrant. I'm showing up with empathy. If she's activated, if she's upset, if she has fears, I'm not trying to talk her out of those. I'm not trying to tell her that she's wrong and that her fears are irrational, or she's not thinking about it the right way, or if she would just think about it the way that I'm thinking about it, then she would actually... That just gets us into those arguments and gets us off the rails. I actually have empathy for whatever it is that she's experiencing. Like, in reality, because I love her dearly, it shouldn't matter what has her upset. The fact that she's upset about anything should matter to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, well, it should still matter to me. If I don't feel like she understood what I was saying and her misunderstanding of what I said upset her, well, her being upset should still matter to me. And if I have empathy, I can actually lean in on that, and I can actually show up well for her. If I don't have empathy, then I'm just going to kind of convince her that she's wrong. And that's not going to get us anywhere. If I can understand our difference of opinion, if I can understand the value that she has as a person, and if I can see and hear her, then regardless of how she's showing up, regardless of if we're in disagreement, I can understand her and have empathy for her. And if I do that, I can show up, and that connection, that intimacy, that good communication, that good problem solving, all those things are on the table for her and I to experience. But I don't just show up that way. Like, in fact, if I'm not really intentional, I don't show up that way ever. I do defend myself, or I do the things that I do in my fight or flight mode. I catastrophize. I blow things out of proportion. I do the thing where I just completely self-abandon, agree with anything she says while not really agreeing, and just check out and go hide from her for a while. None of those things get me to what I want in my relationship. They actually get me further away from that. So I don't just naturally show up this way, ready to experience everything that I want in relationships. I actually have a choice. And that choice is, am I going to react right now, or am I going to respond? Because if I respond, I can show up that way, and I can experience everything that I want in those relationships. If I react, how I'm showing up is going to go some other direction than what I want. But how do we respond? How do we react? How do we get to the response and stop doing the reactions? Well, that all comes from that personal awareness of, do I know myself? Do I take care of myself? Do I process what's going on in me? Do I know what it is that I'm afraid of? And can I either speak truth, or can I sit with, or can I talk about that with my therapist, or can I talk about that with a friend, or can I go to God about that, kind of reflect on that? Can I meditate on that? Because if I can know what those fears are and I can name them, and I can do what I need to do inside of me to bring whatever it is that threat that makes me want to do this, to slowly bring myself back down, well, then I can respond. And if I can respond, I can show up as this person. And if I show up as this person, everything that I want in my relationship is available. It's not a guarantee that I'll experience that, but it's my best shot. And so, again, if we're looking at how do I have that best relationship that I can possibly want? Well, 25% of the work is what my spouse and I do in that relationship. And 75% of the work is what I do without her, in my heart and in my mind, by myself. And the more intentional I am about doing that, and the more intentional I am about taking the personal responsibility of showing up for communication with my wife, for interaction with my wife, if I'm really putting in the work and being very mindful and very intentional about that, it's my best shot to have that relationship. If we talk about this for my athletes right now, if we're talking about your high performance, it really is the same thing. I want to perform well. I want to win the game. I want to get X amount of receptions. I want to score X amount of buckets. I want to score this many goals, whatever it may be. This is what I want. This is what I want to experience. And when we're on teams, and when we're coached, and when we're going up against opponents, we are not in control of this box. What happens there has a lot of variables that are out of our control. And so we oftentimes, just this past weekend, my 8-year-old wanted to blame the referee for the loss that he had. Well, referees' bad decisions are down here that can interfere with what I want. My teammate not performing well is down here and as a obstacle to what I want. My opponent being really freaking good is down here as an obstacle to what I want. And whereas I can't control everything and guarantee that I'm going to get what I want, how am I showing up for it? The personal responsibility of how I show up and engage in that activity, in that game, in that practice, in that competition, whatever it may be. The personal responsibility of how I show up is based off of, am I responding, or am I in fight or flight and on autopilot and doing things in an anxious or nervous state? And how do I avoid that? By knowing myself well, processing my fears, processing what's going on inside of me, doing my self-care, doing my training, doing all the things that I can in my own control to set myself up for success. Because if I do that, I'm going to respond. And if I respond, I'm going to show up well with all the characteristics that I want to show up with to perform well. And that gives me the best shot to achieve what I want. This seems like common sense, and yet when I look around the world and when I meet with clients and when I help people with relationships, or I talk with athletes, or I talk with CEOs or even politicians, like it's all this idea of this external locus of control. So you have an internal locus of control and an external locus of control. Internal locus of control says, hey, like I am in control of me, I'm in control of my actions, and those are the things that I do that actually have the change, the ability to make change in my world around me. And external locus of control is that, hey, like the things around me, the things in my environment, the other people in my life, they have the control. And what they do dictates what goes on in my life with my mindset and my emotions. And that idea of external locus of control is the antithesis to what I'm talking about today with personal responsibility. Now, I do want to throw a disclaimer in here. I'm a white, heterosexual male, and I know that I can only view the world through that lens. And I don't know the prejudices. I don't know these discriminatory just things that are in the fabric of our culture that are external factors that can drive things and make things far more difficult. I can't put myself in your shoes. I can empathize to the best of my ability, but the only perspective that I can actually feel and own is my own. And so I understand that this is coming from that standpoint, but I still feel like these truths can play out. Like I'm in control of me, and I'm in control of how I interact with the world around me, and how I show up to interact with the world around me is really going to dictate how often and how much I'm going to be able to experience what I want. In relationships, I'm not going to put the change that I need in my spouse. I'm going to put the change that I need inside me and through my own processing to show up for the best opportunity to meet them where they're at. Sure, I'm going to communicate, hey, this is what I'm feeling. When this happens, I'm experiencing this. When this happens, I'm feeling this. But I'm not going to have that codependent relationship of, so I'm only going to feel this way until you stop doing that. You not doing that is the only solution to how I can operate and function. It might affect me. I might have to continue to go back and process things internally if that thing continues to happen. And I certainly want to communicate that. But I can be okay, and I can find emotional health, and I can still even experience some things that I want if I'm showing up well for those things and taking the personal responsibility to do so. I can experience in performance challenges in the competition, or a bad decision by the referee, or an opponent who is doing something that is really creating obstacles for me to be successful. But even then, I can still experience some of the things that I want regardless of what they do if I'm being intentional in how I'm approaching that and showing up well for it. I think the political nature, the political fabric of what's going on around us is probably the most obvious area of this. And as we talk about a left and we talk about a right, and we talk about the ways in which laws are shifted, and whoever's in power is creating the laws or moving the laws, and whoever's in the minority is kind of left to, well, we got to wait this out so we can get power again and we can change the laws. Because it's that idea of, I'm not going to show up well to try to communicate this and meet you in a calm state for us to have a dialogue on what it is that you're afraid of and what it is that I'm afraid of, and actually try to resolve these conflicts in a way that's helpful, and I might actually move this country along in a little bit better way than it is. It's, I don't like this, I have a fear of this, this is a threat to me, and I don't like the fact that you can do that or that you're doing that, so I'm going to create legislation that forces you into a situation where you can't do the things that I want you to, that I don't like you doing. And that is the way in which I'm going to feel okay. And that is the way that in which that I'm going to feel safe, is if I can legally make it where you can't do things, or that you can do things that I don't want you to do. And guys, it's dividing us, and it's killing us, and it's this, as I've filmed this, it's 2 days before Thanksgiving. There's going to be families that are going to be arguing over Thanksgiving table because of these things. It's interrupting our connection. It's interrupting our harmony. It's interrupting our inner peace. And instead of trying to force things to be a certain way, so that everything around me is set up the way that I want it to be set up, because if all those ducks are in a row and all those things are the way I want, and you can't do those things that I don't like you doing, you can only do the things that I like, that I enjoy, that are safe to me, well then, if all that's together, then I'm going to be okay. And that's a fool's errand, because it's never going to happen. You're never going to pull it off. But what if I'm actually figuring out what it is that scares me about those things, what it is that are so threatening to me about those things. And I begin to sit with those things. I begin to process those things. I begin to understand those things. And I actually put my emphasis into showing up for dialogue around those things with people, for the ability to try to show up with empathy and logic with those people. Not to get them to stop doing what I want them to stop doing, but to instead care about the fact that whatever reason is causing them to do the thing that I don't like is their own fear and their own threat. And maybe we're just two scared people who have different ideas on how to navigate those fears, and if we could actually have a better dialogue around that, we might actually be able to experience a little bit more of those things that we're actually looking for, and we won't feel so dang anxious about trying to control all the things that we were never going to be able to control anyways. So it's all about, what am I going to do inside me, and how am I going to show up, and am I willing to accept the responsibility that if I'm showing up poorly and I'm not experiencing those things, that it's because I'm not showing up the way that I need to, and I'm the only person who can do something about that. If there's anything about this that's helpful, share this. If there's any questions or any thoughts that you have, if I'm an idiot and you have a different point of view, anything that I would ever say and to you guys is written in pencil. Because if I can find better data, if I can find data that's contrary to what I'm saying, I'm wide open. I would love to hear it. And so as we're kind of closing today, I appreciate you watching. And please comment and ask questions, and let's see if this dialogue can actually get us even more curious about each other, and can actually help us all experience a little bit more of those things that you want. Thanks for watching. See y'all later.